Hi, welcome back to the course Intellectual Property Rights. Our today's topic is Convention on Biological Diversity, in which we are going to discuss about introduction, historical background, Nagoya Protocol, Cartagena Protocol on biosafety, and some other important points related to the Convention on Biological Diversity or biodiversity. So basically, components of biodiversity are all the various forms of life on Earth, including ecosystems, animals, plants, microorganisms, genetic diversity, basically all living things, all living organisms which are present on Earth or occurring naturally. Okay, all those are part of the biodiversity. And as we know, these biological resources which are currently present in the nature are playing an important role in everyone's life, in life of human beings, and they all are having specific functions with respect to the protection of biodiversity. They are having their particular role in the nature. Okay, so these particular resources which are occurring naturally or we are getting from the nature, for example, there is a presence of medicinal important plants. For example, neem is there, and so many examples are there like neem. So all these resources, when we are using them for our social development, economic development, they will get distinct from earth when we are using them without any control. So to protect biodiversity from uncontrolled use, we should have some protocol, we should have some program, so that we are able to balance nature while at the same time we are able to use them, we use that resources in the controlled manner, so that which will be useful for next generations also. Okay, so biodiversity is playing directly and indirectly very important role in our daily routine. Need of conservation of biodiversity is there because nowadays we are using them in very uncontrolled manner. So when we started to set up an organization or protocol or a convention for the protection of biodiversity, first of all, there is this convention, that is Convention on Biological Diversity, and the members of this CBD are 193 parties. And as we discussed earlier, parties are nothing but the members of that organization or that treaty or the convention. So here 193 parties are the members of Convention on Biological Diversity. Integrated strategy for the management of resources is the framework for action under convention. Okay, so some integrated approach was necessary for the protection of biodiversity and at the same time use of these resources in the controlled manner. The precautionary principle states that where there is a threat of significant reduction or loss of biological diversity, lack of full scientific knowledge should not be used as a reason to avoid or minimize such a threat. Okay, so basically, precautionary principles are there in which threat of significant reduction or loss of biological diversity. Here, without or lack of full scientific knowledge is one of the threat to biodiversity. Also, significant reduction of biological diversity is also there. And without all these things, we should not minimize the such threats. Okay, that so basically some scientific knowledge is necessary. As a result, there is a growing recognition that biological diversity is a global asset of tremendous value to present and future generation. Okay, so as we know, India is full of biodiversity, and also like India, so many other countries are also having their biodiversities or some biological biologically important resources which are having very good value, economic as well as medicinal properties are also there. So basically, this biodiversity or biological diversity is one of the important thing of the nature. So protection of that biodiversity is very much necessary. When we are looking for the historical background before the coming of this Convention on Biological Diversity, first of all, United Nations Environmental Program, that is UNEP, convened that convened the ad hoc working group of experts on biological diversity in November 1988. Okay, so this was the starting or initiation of formation of Convention on Biological Diversity, which was in 1988, November 1988. In May 1989, it established a working group of technical and legal experts to prepare an international legal instrument. Then, in February 1991, ad hoc working group had become known as the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. Okay, so that step by step, this ad hoc working group got an authority to develop some protocol to or some approach to protect the biodiversity. Its work ended on 22 May 1992 with the Nairobi Conference for the adoption of the agreed text of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Okay, so one of the important event, that is 22nd of May 1992, where Nairobi Conference for the adoption of agreed text of Convention on Biological Diversity. Okay, it was an primary draft or text in which all the basic of Convention on Biological Diversity was there. Then the Convention on Biological Diversity was opened for signature at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro on 5th June 1992 and entered into force on 29th December 1993. Okay, so as we know, whenever any new organization, new treaties are there, they will be having open access to number of countries to become a member of particular party or convention. Like that, here Convention on Biological Diversity was also opened for the signature on 5th of June 1992 and entered into force on 29 December 1993. First session of the Conference of the Parties was scheduled for 28 November to 9 December 1994 in the Bahamas. Okay, so the Conference of the Parties is nothing but an core group of the member parties which is involved in the number of discussions or the rounds held for the progress in biological convention in biological diversity is one of the core group. The Convention on Biological Diversity is an international legally binding treaty with three main goals. Okay, so these are three goals which are very important or which can be the heart of this Convention on Biological Diversity, that is conservation of biodiversity. Okay, so conservation of biodiversity. In conservation, mainly the resources which are useful for different purposes, all those resources should be used in the controlled manner is important, and these resources should be protected in some ways, that is conservation of biodiversity. Sustainable use of biodiversity. Sustainable use of biodiversity in which it includes the appropriate access to genetic resources by appropriate transfer of relevant technologies and by appropriate funding. Its overall objective is to encourage the action which will lead to a sustainable future. Okay, so we need to go for both the aims. Okay, that is protection and at the same time use of the resources in the proper manner. So that is our sustainable use of biodiversity. Then fair and at equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the use of genetic resources. So here it is also one of the important goal of Convention on Biological Diversity, that is from different part of the world, number of biodiversities or particular regions are there where important species of the plants and animals are there which are having some unique properties. Okay, so these benefits from these particular resources should be equally distributed, or and local bodies, local community related to that resources should also get benefited. That is one of the important goal. Next, its overall objective is to encourage actions which will lead to a sustainable future. The CBD's governing body is the conference of the parties. Okay, so earlier as we discussed, the conference of the parties is nothing but the core group or main body which is discussing, which is improving or yearly or some periodically they are coming together and discussing about the biodiversity worldwide. The treaty meets every 2 years to review progress, set priorities, and commit to work plan. Okay, so here it comes together every 2 years and they will have some commitment and also have some future plans. Okay, so this is the functioning group of functions, uh, that is conference of the parties. Example, upcoming 15th Mint will be held in China. Okay, actually it was held, okay, last year in China. Upcoming, it may be in 2022, will be held somewhere else. This is particularly important in sectors such as agriculture, fisheries, energy, forestry, transportation, and urban planning. Then, as we discussed, this conference of the parties is one of the core group of the Convention on Biological Diversities, which is formed by the number of members of CBD. They are having multiple functions. Okay, this this can be said as an ultimate authority of that particular country's government. Okay, and as we discussed, they have approved meet every 2 years to review the progress of their priorities. Under the CBD government accept to conserve. Okay, so this is also one of the functions, that is conservation of biodiversity. So which is, or which have to be followed by that particular governments of the countries. Then next, that is some other points, commitments include, that is rewriting and restoring degraded ecosystems and promoting the recovery of threatened species. Okay, so here restoring degraded ecosystems means what? Sometimes some biodiversity or biological diversity located nearby and city, and that particular area can be used for the urban development. Okay, so this is dangerous to that ecosystem and biodiversity. So in these particular cases, we should not harm that ecosystem. Okay, so that's restoring degraded ecosystems and promoting the recovery of threatened species. Then identifying and monitoring the components of biodiversity that need to be conserved. Next, establishing protected areas to conserve biodiversity. Establishing protected areas is nothing but sanctuaries, or that is wildlife sanctuaries, or some protected areas for that animal or that plant which mainly occurred in that region, that is protected areas to conserve the biodiversity. Then respecting, preserving and maintaining traditional knowledge. Okay, as we gone through in our last lecture, traditional knowledge, which is also need to preserve and maintain. So that's also included in Convention on Biological Diversity. Then preventing the introduction of, controlling and preventing the introduction of and controlling and eradicating foreign species. Okay, so maybe some species are there which are harmful to the ecosystem, that can be, that should be eradicated. That is also one of the important function. Then educating people and raising awareness about the importance of biodiversity and the need to conserve it. It's one of the major aspects in CBD, that is awareness about importance of biological diversity. Next, the Secretariat of Convention on Biological Diversity is based in Montreal, Canada. Okay, for objective purpose, one of the important thing, that is Secretariat of Convention on Biological Diversity based some, that is in Canada, Montreal. The executive secretary is the head of the secretariat. Okay, so these are the important points related to the administration of Convention on Biological Diversity. Then two important protocols are there which are related to the biosafety and protection of biological diversity, that is Nagoya Protocol, which was entered into force on 12th of October 2014, which is international agreement which aims at sharing the benefit arising from utilization of genetic resources in fair and equitable way. Okay, so one of the important things covered in the Nagoya Protocol, that is, as we know, mainly the genetic resources or organisms. It may be plants, animals, which are having particular properties, which which mainly which spread by or studied by that local community. Okay, so that local community should also get the benefited from these genetic resources, and that is fair and equitable way. Then the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety aims to ensure the safe handling, transport, and use of living modified organisms. Okay, living modified organisms which are produced by the ways of biotechnology, that is genetic engineering. So all these organisms should also handled safely, transported is one of the aspect of Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. Then that may have adverse effect on biological diversity, taking also in account risk to human health. Okay, sometimes genetically engineered organisms are there which may harmful to the nature or human beings also. That is also one of the important aspects of Cartagena Protocol, which was adopted on 29th of January 2000 and entered into force on 11th September 2003. Okay, so these are the two important protocols under the CBD. So all this is about Convention on Biological Diversity. Now, next important point is there, that is Indian Biological Diversity Act 2002. Its features and benefit sharing that we will discuss in our next lecture. So we'll stop here today. Thank you.